What is brain fog? Where does it come from?
So, brain fog, B stands for blood flow. Low blood flow is the number one brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease. It goes with brain fog. So what gives you low blood flow in your brain? Caffeine constricts blood flow to the brain. Nicotine, marijuana, alcohol, not sleeping, being overweight.
When Robert couldn't remember his grandson's name at the family barbecue, his son thought it was the beginning of the end. The same man who had designed bridges for 40 years, who could calculate structural loads in his head, was staring blankly at the 8-year-old boy he'd taught to ride a bike just 2 summers ago. 8-year-old Tommy had to remind his own grandfather who he was. What they discovered 90 days later shocked even his doctor. Robert Martinez had always been the sharp one in the family. Retired mechanical engineer with 40 years of experience. The guy who never needed to write anything down because his memory was his superpower. He could remember blueprints from projects decades ago, recall every detail of family birthdays, and solve complex problems in his head while other people reached for calculators. But over the past 3 years, something had been slipping away, piece by piece. It started small. Where did he put his reading glasses? They were always on his head. What was his neighbor's name again? The woman he'd chatted with every morning for 15 years. These moments were easy to laugh off. Everyone has senior moments, right? Then it got worse. He'd start telling his favorite story about building the downtown bridge and forget the ending halfway through, leaving his audience hanging. He'd walk into the kitchen and stand there for 5 minutes, completely lost about why he came in. Phone numbers he'd known by heart for decades suddenly vanished from his mind. He'd stare at the grocery store shelves, overwhelmed by simple decisions like which cereal to buy. His family started to notice. His daughter-in-law would repeat herself 3 times during dinner conversations. His son David began dropping subtle hints about maybe it was time to think about giving up the car keys. The word dementia started getting whispered in hushed conversations when they thought Robert couldn't hear. But Robert's story was just beginning. The medical journey started with his family doctor. Then came the specialists. Expensive cognitive tests that made him feel like a lab rat. Brain scans that showed nothing alarming. Blood work that came back normal. Test after test, appointment after appointment. The results? Everything looked normal for his age. Normal? This didn't feel normal. This felt like watching himself disappear, one memory at a time. Robert had always been health conscious, especially after his heart scare at 65. That wake-up call had changed everything. He'd completely overhauled his lifestyle. Cut out sugar entirely after reading about how it caused inflammation. Gave up his beloved morning coffee to avoid those afternoon energy crashes. Even quit his weekend cigars that he'd enjoyed for 30 years. He was doing everything the health experts recommended. Eating clean, staying active with daily walks, taking his vitamins, following every piece of advice he could find online about preventing cognitive decline. He was doing everything right. Or so he thought. But the brain fog kept getting thicker. Some days felt like trying to think through molasses. Words would disappear mid-sentence, leaving him grasping for thoughts that seemed to evaporate the moment he reached for them. Simple decisions became overwhelming puzzles. Should he wear the blue shirt or the white one? The question could paralyze him for 10 minutes. His grandson Tommy, who used to run to Grandpa for help with math homework, stopped asking. The boy who once looked up to Robert as the smartest person in the world now spoke to him slowly and carefully, like he was fragile. The worst part wasn't the forgetting. It was watching his family's eyes change. The way they looked at him with a mixture of pity and fear. The way conversations stopped when he entered the room. The way his own son had started talking to him like he was already gone. Then everything changed at his nephew's wedding. Robert met Dr. Sarah Chen, a neurologist who specialized in cognitive decline in older adults. She wasn't his doctor, just someone making small talk at the reception. But when Robert mentioned his memory struggles, her professional curiosity was piqued. Dr. Chen asked him something no other medical professional had bothered to explore. She wanted to know about his daily routine, What did he eat? When did he sleep? How did he spend his days? Robert proudly explained his disciplined, healthy lifestyle. No sugar whatsoever, 0 caffeine, in bed by 9 p.m. every night, clean eating, regular exercise. He was the picture of healthy aging. Dr. Chen's expression changed as he talked. She listened carefully, asking follow-up questions that seemed oddly specific. How many hours of sleep was he actually getting? What did his typical breakfast look like? When was the last time he'd eaten fruit? She told Robert that his so-called healthy habits might actually be destroying his brain. The answer wasn't hiding in any prescription bottle or expensive medical procedure. It was hiding in plain sight, in the very lifestyle changes he thought were protecting him. Dr. Chen explained the science behind what was happening in Robert's brain. His ultra-restrictive, no-sugar diet had crashed his brain's primary fuel source. The human brain runs on glucose, consuming about 20% of the body's total energy. By eliminating all forms of sugar, including natural sources like fruits and complex carbohydrates, Robert had literally been starving his brain of its preferred fuel. When the brain doesn't get enough glucose, it struggles to form new memories, maintain focus, and process information efficiently. It's like trying to drive a car on an empty gas tank. The caffeine elimination was equally problematic. While too much caffeine can cause jitters and crashes, moderate amounts actually provide powerful neuroprotective benefits. Caffeine enhances focus, improves memory consolidation, and contains antioxidants that protect brain cells from damage. By cutting it out completely, Robert had removed a key ally in maintaining cognitive sharpness. His sleep schedule, which seemed healthy on the surface, was actually working against him. While he was going to bed early, he was only getting 6 hours of actual sleep per night. His aging brain needed 9 hours for proper memory consolidation, the process where short-term memories get transferred to long-term storage. Without adequate sleep, his brain couldn't properly file away the day's experiences and information. Finally, at 40 pounds overweight, chronic inflammation was clouding his cognitive function like smoke filling a clear room. Excess weight triggers inflammatory responses throughout the body, including the brain. This inflammation interferes with neural communication and memory formation. Robert's brain fog wasn't the inevitable result of aging. It was the predictable result of starvation, sleep deprivation, and inflammation. Dr. Chen outlined a simple 90-day protocol that would address each of these issues systematically. She emphasized that dramatic changes weren't necessary, just strategic adjustments to give his brain what it actually needed to function optimally. Weeks 1, 2 focused on reintroducing healthy carbohydrates: sweet potatoes, steel-cut oats, quinoa, and fresh berries. These foods would provide steady glucose to fuel his brain without causing blood sugar spikes. Robert was skeptical about eating carbs again after years of avoiding them, but he committed to the plan. Weeks 3, 4 brought back caffeine in a controlled way. 1 cup of high-quality coffee each morning, consumed with breakfast to minimize any stomach upset. The caffeine would sharpen his focus, while the antioxidants provided neuroprotective benefits. Weeks 5, 8 addressed his sleep deficit. Instead of forcing himself to bed at 9 p.m. and lying awake, Robert would go to bed when he felt naturally tired, aiming for 8 hours of actual sleep. He learned about sleep hygiene, creating a cool, dark environment and avoiding screens before bedtime. Weeks 9, 12 tackled the weight issue through gentle, sustainable changes. Not a dramatic diet, just portion control and daily 30-minute walks. The goal was reducing inflammation throughout his body, including his brain. Robert was skeptical. After years of cognitive decline and expensive medical consultations, could the solution really be this straightforward? It seemed too simple, too easy. But he was desperate enough to try anything, and Dr. Chen's explanations made scientific sense. The first 2 weeks were challenging. Reintroducing carbohydrates after years of restriction felt like cheating. But by day 10, Robert noticed something subtle. The afternoon brain fog that had plagued him for years seemed lighter. Words came a little easier during conversations with his wife. Week 3 brought the return of coffee, and the change was more dramatic. That first cup brought a clarity he hadn't experienced in years. Not jittery energy, but clear, focused thought. He found himself engaging more actively in conversations, following complex TV shows without losing track of plot lines. The sleep changes in weeks 5, 8 were transformative. By allowing his body's natural rhythms to guide his bedtime and ensuring 7, 8 hours of sleep, Robert woke up feeling refreshed instead of groggy. His dreams became more vivid, and he started remembering them again. By week 10, people were commenting on the change. His wife noticed he was telling complete stories again. His neighbor mentioned that their morning chats had become more engaging. Even Tommy started asking Grandpa questions about school projects. After 90 days, Robert returned to Dr. Chen for follow-up cognitive testing. The same assessments that had worried his family months earlier now told a completely different story. His score jumped from the 15th percentile to the 78th percentile for his age group. But numbers on paper couldn't capture the real transformation. The true test came at Tommy's 9th birthday party. Robert walked up to his grandson, called him by name without hesitation, and challenged him to watch Grandpa solve a Rubik's Cube. Not only did he remember Tommy's name perfectly, he solved the puzzle in under 2 minutes while explaining the mathematical principles behind the solution. His son David watched from across the room with tears in his eyes. The father he remembered was back. Robert's transformation proves that what we often accept as normal aging might actually be treatable brain starvation. The symptoms we dismiss as inevitable, the mental decline we fear as we get older, could be the result of well-intentioned but misguided lifestyle choices.